Picture this. You're a skilled worker in Windsor, Ontario, building the future at a $5 billion electric vehicle battery plant, a joint venture between Stellantis and LG Energy Solution. This project was supposed to anchor Canada's green economy, promising thousands of high-tech jobs. Then, out of nowhere, your contractor tells you to pack up and go home. Nearly 200 millwrights, electricians, and ironworkers faced this exact scenario. The contractor, Sylvan Canada, was ordered to demobilize its entire crew. Work stopped instantly with no clear explanation. One day, you're part of a landmark project, the next you're told not to come back, maybe for a week, maybe longer. Nexstar Energy, the company behind the plant, called it a normal adjustment. But for workers it felt like corporate speak for, "You're out and we're not telling you why." No timeline was given for when these workers might return, fueling anxiety and speculation. This plant is a huge deal for Windsor and Canada, expected to create 2,500 permanent jobs, with $15 billion in government support. The project had already faced delays over funding, so this latest hiccup felt like another blow. For a city betting its future on the EV revolution, the sudden halt was a stark reminder. The road to the future is full of unexpected potholes. The uncertainty doesn't just hit wallets, it shakes entire families and communities. Even a temporary pause can send shockwaves through a city staking everything on the promise of green jobs. Now let's zoom out, because Windsor's fate is tied to what happens just across the river in Detroit. Windsor is the heart of Canada's auto industry, and its relationship with the US is everything. When the Trump administration slapped a 25% tariff on most Canadian exports, it wasn't just a headline, it was a direct threat to Windsor's survival. These weren't just taxes on goods, they were taxes on a way of life built on cross-border cooperation. For generations, Windsor and Detroit have operated like two halves of the same engine, parts, cars, and people flowing back and forth. The tariffs threw a wrench into that engine, shaking the very foundation of Windsor's economy. The fear wasn't just about losing a few jobs, it was about entire factories shutting down, supply chains breaking, and thousands of families at risk. The sudden hostility from the US felt like a betrayal to Canadians who saw Americans as friends and allies. Tensions boiled over, even the American national anthem was booed at a local hockey game, a rare act in Canada. Windsorites felt helpless, caught in a trade war they didn't start, but whose consequences they'd bear. Their economic future and their relationship with their closest neighbor was suddenly hanging in the balance, all because of policies made far from home. The tariffs that hit Windsor were part of a much larger, aggressive US trade strategy. President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and 10% on China, aiming to pressure on trade imbalances. But the real-world effect was chaos, throwing a grenade into the global economy. US farmers feared losing their biggest markets, and trade groups warned tariffs would act as a tax on American consumers. Global leaders watched as the US seemed to dismantle the very system of international trade it built. The fear, a cycle of retaliation, a tit-for-tat trade war hurting everyone. Canada and Mexico quickly announced they'd fight back, drawing up their own tariffs. Suddenly, over $1 trillion in trade was at risk. Economists warned of recessions in Canada and Mexico, and stagflation in the US. The tariffs were meant to show American strength, but critics argued they'd do the opposite, disrupting supply chains and alienating allies. The result? A world of uncertainty, with businesses unable to plan and partnerships unraveling, all in the name of a trade strategy many feared would backfire. Combine sudden layoffs at a major factory with a trade war, and you get a perfect storm of economic anxiety. For Windsor, this isn't theory, it's daily life. The abrupt dismissal of nearly 200 workers at Nexstar, a project meant to be a beacon of hope, shows how fragile even the most promising ventures can be. The threat of US tariffs creates a constant hum of fear in a city fused to Detroit. Instability makes the region vulnerable to economic shocks, whether from a politician's tweet or a corporate decision. The feeling of being targeted by your closest ally leaves many Canadians frustrated and betrayed. Ultimately, it's ordinary people who pay the price. Workers without paychecks, small businesses with soaring costs, families putting plans on hold. This is the human cost of trade wars and economic volatility. To understand Windsor's turmoil, you have to see how politics and economics are tangled together. Tariffs aren't just about numbers, they're political tools. The Trump administration's tariffs were framed as protecting American jobs, but the reality was chaos for the auto industry. The North American auto sector is deeply integrated. A single car part might cross the border multiple times. Tariffs disrupted this dance, raising costs and creating logistical nightmares. A decision meant to punish Canada ended up hurting American companies and workers too. The disconnect political narratives of nationalism versus the economic reality of global cooperation. The result? Strained relationships and job security in Windsor becoming a pawn in a bigger game. It's not just tariffs. Massive government subsidies for the Nexstar plant are also political. Canada invested billions to compete with US incentives for green energy. Governments are now in a bidding war for future-defining industries. Political decisions are shaping where factories are built, who gets hired, and who's left behind. While North America is tangled in trade disputes, Europe is quietly becoming a global leader in EV batteries. European nations are rolling out the red carpet for battery manufacturers, offering stability, clear regulations, and big financial support. The result? A $20 billion battery investment jackpot is flowing into Europe. The EU has a unified strategy: make electric vehicles a top priority and avoid dependence on Asia or North America for batteries. Countries like Germany, France, and Sweden are becoming gigafactory hotspots. Companies from around the world are choosing Europe for its stability and government backing. While North American projects like Nexstar face hurdles, Europe's battery boom is full steam ahead. Europe's gain is a direct result of North America's self-inflicted uncertainty. The $20 billion battery investment pouring into Europe is a tale of two continents. North America, with huge potential, is bogged down by internal squabbles and trade tensions. Businesses hesitate to invest when the rules can change overnight. Europe, meanwhile, offers a united front and a clear roadmap, giving investors confidence. Every gigafactory built in Europe instead of North America means thousands of lost jobs and a missed chance to lead in green tech. North America has the resources and workforce to dominate the EV market, but political divisions undermine these advantages. The lesson in a global economy: cooperation and stability are essential for success. As long as North America remains divided, it will keep losing opportunities to more coordinated regions. The battery jackpot is just the latest example. So, where does this leave North America? The future of its trade and industry is hanging in the balance. The layoffs at Nexstar are a symptom of a bigger problem. The green transition is more volatile than expected. With the EV market facing headwinds and US incentives ramping up, Canadian projects are walking a tightrope. Success depends on stable supply chains and predictable markets, both in short supply. The US-Canada relationship, the bedrock of North American stability, is still fragile. For industries like autos, any hint of future trade disputes is a major worry. Businesses are forced to focus on risk management instead of innovation, stifling growth. For cities like Windsor, the future feels precarious, caught between promise and political turmoil. The path forward is unclear. Will North America restore cooperation or continue down a path of rivalry? The answer will shape the economic fate of millions. Looking ahead, the message is clear. North America needs to rebuild trust and cooperation. The future of trade and jobs depends on partnership, not rivalry. A stable, predictable trade framework is essential for long-term investment. Canada must keep projects like Nexstar on track and play to its strengths: critical minerals and skilled workers. The US, Canada, and Mexico should work together to create a powerful, integrated green tech hub. Coordinating on policy and investing in cross-border infrastructure will attract investment and create jobs. The recent turmoil is a wake-up call. Cooperation beats conflict. By focusing on shared goals, North America can build a more secure future. The livelihoods of millions depend on it.